When we think of ancient Greece or Rome, we typically imagine togas and sandals, chariots and gladiators. But among the ruins of that long-ago world are the remnants of an even more valuable treasure, a legacy of thought that has shaped our modern minds in ways both big and small. Welcome to my channel. Today we're going to unpack what that treasure is and how it continues to affect us today, by exploring a series of related questions. What did the Stoics believe? Why do we still care about their ideas? And most importantly, why should you? The Stoics were a group of philosophers who flourished in ancient Greece and Rome. Between roughly 300 BC and 200 AD in this period, they grappled with life's big questions just like we do today. What does it mean to live a good life? How do we deal with suffering and death? What's the right way to interact with other people? The Stoics didn't have all the answers, but their attempts to answer these questions have proven remarkably relevant for people across time and cultures. But before we get into what those answers were, let's quickly step back and unpack where the word Stoic even comes from. There's a common misconception that Stoicism comes from the Greek word stoipoikal, which literally means painted porch. This was the name of the ancient Greek colonnade where Stoic philosophy was first taught. While the etymology is actually a bit more complicated than that, this image does capture one key feature of Stoic philosophy. For the Stoics, life's most important conversations happened at the metaphorical porch. They were out in the world engaging with politics, business, love, and war, just like everyone else. They weren't monks living in caves or hermits on mountains. They were active participants in the world who wanted to improve it. At the same time, though, they believed that true wisdom came from within. Their goal wasn't just to make the world a better place, but also to make themselves better people. So now we come to the real meat of the matter, the Stoics' answers to life's big questions. To understand what the Stoics had to say, it helps to know a little bit more about the context in which they were living. We tend to think of ancient Greece and Rome as a simpler time, but for the average person, life was actually pretty complicated. There was no such thing as unemployment insurance or universal health care. War and plague were constant threats, and the vast majority of people lived in poverty. But despite this, or maybe because of it, the Greeks and Romans wrestled with some of the same existential questions we deal with today. Like, how do we make sense of suffering? Or what do we do when things don't go our way? One particularly resonant Stoic idea is the concept of the dichotomy of control. The Stoics believed that there were some things we could control and others we couldn't. Things like our opinions, our actions, and our thoughts were under our control. But things like other people's opinions, their actions, and outside events were not. The Stoics argued that we often suffer not because of the events that happen to us, but because of our judgment of those events. When we can't control what happens, then the only path to happiness is to accept things as they are. Another central Stoic idea is the concept of living in accordance with nature. For the Stoics, this didn't mean building a treehouse or becoming a vegetarian, but it did mean living a life of simplicity and self-sufficiency. They believed that we should strive to be like the ancient Greek and Roman heroes of epic poetry, people like Odysseus, who showed courage and resilience in the face of adversity. Finally, Stoicism had a lot to say about virtue. For the Stoics, virtue was the key to happiness and fulfillment. They believed that we should strive to be the best people we can be, acting with honesty, courage, and compassion towards others. By living a virtuous life, the Stoics believed we could find meaning and purpose no matter what challenges we faced. Now that we know a little bit more about what Stoicism is, let's tackle the second question. Why do we still care? Why do we still talk about ancient Greek and Roman philosophers? Why do we still read their books and try to put their ideas into practice? The simple answer is because their ideas work. They provide a clear and actionable path to wisdom and happiness that is just as relevant today as it was 2,000 years ago. But this isn't just wishful thinking. There's a growing body of scientific evidence that shows that the practices recommended by the Stoics, like focusing on what you can control, practicing gratitude, and accepting things as they are, actually do lead to greater well-being. More specifically, research has found that the Stoics' emphasis on self-control and emotional regulation leads to better mental health outcomes, including lower levels of depression and anxiety. Their focus on meaning and purpose leads to greater life satisfaction and happiness. And their emphasis on interconnectedness and compassion leads to greater prosocial behavior, like helping others and being more forgiving. All right, now let's address the last question. Why should you care about the Stoics? The honest answer is because you'll be better off for it. By learning about Stoicism and putting its ideas into practice, you'll be better equipped to deal with whatever life throws your way. You'll be better able to control your emotions, find meaning in difficult situations, and make a positive impact on the world around you. But beyond these practical benefits, there's something else to consider. The Stoics weren't just philosophers. They were also writers, poets, and thinkers who grappled with the same questions we grapple with today. They were human beings trying to make sense of the world and their place in it. And in doing so, they created some of the most beautiful and timeless works of literature ever written. By learning about the Stoics, we learn about ourselves and we connect with the rich intellectual heritage that has shaped Western civilization. In the words of the Roman Stoic philosopher Marcus Aurelius, the fruit of this life is good character and acts for the common good. So why not give it a try? Learn about the Stoics and see if their ideas can help make you a better, happier, and more fulfilled person. And look, I know what you're thinking. You probably think you do and have time to learn about the Stoics, or that it's too complicated, or that it won't make a difference. But here's the thing. You do and have to spend hours poring over ancient texts or memorize the names of every Stoic philosopher to get started. There are plenty of resources available to help you get up to speed on Stoic philosophy without having to become an expert. And even better, you don't have to do this alone. There are tons of online communities and groups where you can connect with other Stoic learners and practitioners. You can also check out websites like Daily Stoic, which provides daily meditations and reflections on Stoic philosophy. Plus, we've got our podcast, which takes a deep dive into the world of Stoicism. Ultimately, the most important thing is to just get started. Take small steps like reading a book or listening to a podcast episode and see how you feel. You might be surprised at how much you enjoy it and how much it improves your life. Here are some of our favorite books for beginners. The Obstacle is the Way by Ryan Holiday. This book applies the lessons of Stoic philosophy to the challenges of everyday life. It's a great introduction to the main tenets of Stoicism and how they can be applied to your own life. The Daily Stoic by Ryan Holiday. This book compiles the best quotes and lessons from Stoic philosophy, one for each day of the year. It's a perfect way to get a daily dose of Stoic wisdom. Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. This is the personal journal of one of the most famous Stoics, the Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius. It's a raw and honest look at his thoughts on everything from death to duty to the nature of reality. And here are some of our favorite podcasts. The Daily Stoic Podcast. This podcast features interviews with experts on Stoic philosophy, as well as conversations about how to apply Stoic ideas to your life. The Stoic Philosophy Podcast. This podcast explores the history and main ideas of Stoic philosophy through in-depth discussions and interviews. Philosophy FM, the Daily Stoic Radio Show. This weekly radio show is a 1-hour exploration of Stoic philosophy and how it can help you live a better life. So there you have it. The Stoics weren't just a bunch of dead philosophers. They were real people who grappled with the same questions we grapple with today. And their ideas are just as relevant today as they were 2,000 years ago. So why not give it a try? Learn about the Stoics and see how their ideas can help make you a better, happier, and more fulfilled person.